everyone, welcome to Longarming by Jaclyn. We're going to do a mini tutorial for Top 5 Friday today because we've been working on joy sewing, and last week we just briefly touched on it. It really doesn't even need too much discussion. This is a memory quilt. However, t-shirt blocks can be part of your joy sewing, so it's all kind of the same. So last week we talked about if you have regular sized and shaped blocks, you just put them together, seam them, open it up like you normally would. If they're close to the same size, you can put them together, seam them, and then see how this one has some margin sticking out below. You can trim them off to the same size after the fact. So try to sort of a little bit center the portion of the block you want to keep. In this case, it's the decal of the t-shirt, but in your joy sewing, it might be a part of that block that you really like, and then just trim off the edges. And that kind of gets us to our next technique of joining this all together, which is add on and trim away. So the blocks that you'll end up with, I'm going to steal this term from Dave from Dave's Craft Room. He uses the term neighborhoods, and I don't know where he got that term, but I like it, so I'm using it. So this t-shirt was already cut at a weird angle, so I just cleaned up the edges, and I added this block first and then made this rectangular and square to the block that I'm going for, and then just cleaned this line up. And then I joined two more blocks here to make a big enough triangle to fill in. So I added a block and cut away, and then added some more blocks and cut away. So you're gonna have some losses here, which is why I said you don't have to aim for a specific size and shape, and you don't have to do trimming on those blocks beforehand, because you'll be doing some trimming after when you do free piecing. So let's see how that comes together. So for something like this, you might have an odd angle. So this t-shirt was already cut at an angle. I just straightened these edges. And so the mantra for this one is going to be add on and take away. So I've added on another piece here and just press that seam open. And I'm building out toward a easier to sew rectangular shape here. So I have added on, and I'm just going to line up to this edge and take away. And you want to sort of preview where you're going to take away, because what's left of this block, either your piecing or in this case the decal of your t-shirt, is going to be cut. And then remember, you'll lose another 1/4 inch whenever you seam this to the next one. So when you're doing free piecing, err on the side of having everything too big and too generous, because as you take away with trimming and seams, you're going to lose some of that. You might want that extra size to be able to trim away, which is why I said in joy sewing to go ahead and do big blocks of odd sizes and keep building on, because some of that is sacrificial when we do this add on and take away method. Alright, so here we are. We've taken this sort of weird angle at the top of this tiger block and fleshed it out. Now I have this larger triangle area that will make this into a big rectangle. So I'm going to find a block to add here and fill that out into a rectangle. As you're hunting around for the correct block to use, one trick is to place your ruler or a tape template on your cutting surface, or maybe if your cutting surface has a grid, so you can sort of visualize that chunk that you're trying to fill in. So in this case, I really didn't have a block the right size that was going to fill up this area. So what I'm going to do is join these two blocks together to make a long enough piece there, and then piece this and trim that into the triangle shape. Alright, so I've pieced these together and added them where I had that angle. So let's lay that all out and kind of see how it looks. So I haven't had to measure any of these weird angles. You just fill it in and then square it up afterwards. And I am gonna lose parts of this. So you can't be too precious about what's around the edges of those blocks. Cut them big so you have room to lose the edges without losing the gist. It does help to start with your main block that you want to preserve the most of and build around that, so that as you're squaring with your add and cut away blocks, you're cutting away that outermost part is what's going to go. So you don't want to put the most important part around those edges where you're going to be trimming. So there is a rectangular block full of fun angles and a lot of different colors right there. And now that I've got some weird triangular trimmings, I'm going to keep those, and the next time I need just a corner to fill, I won't need to sacrifice a whole block. I can use some of these little bits and bobs to cover those corners and make them into squares and rectangles. So there you have it, Freepiecing. That's technique 2 of how you'll start to put together all of your orphan blocks, stray pre-cuts, and your joy sewing blocks, and start to knit those together into a quilt top that you can use for your beautiful new project. Don't forget that you can use choose an accent or a background color and incorporate regular fabric into that. It does help create areas that are like features, like this is a shape I want you to look at by putting a boundary around it. Gives the eye a place to rest so that it's not just sort of chaos rolling into chaos. It gives you a way of grouping things and saying, here's a shape, and directing the eye a little bit across your quilt in a way that takes all that fun chaos and the freedom of joy sewing and gives it a little bit of intention. All right, have a great week. I hope to see you next week for joy sewing. We're going to continue piecing together the tops and see how those turn out. Hopefully at the end of the series we'll have 3 completely different tops to show you from our 3 sewists who are doing joy sewing on the video. And I'd love for you to share your joy sewing, whether it's just blocks that you're starting to put together, finished blocks, or finished tops. You can use the hashtag LongarmingByJaclyn and LBJ LongarmingByJaclyn joy sewing. Have a great day. Bye.